Welcome to Getcha Rocks Off with Mick Wall, the world's leading rock and metal writer. Each fortnight, Mick will unpack rock and roll stories. Stories that you probably won't find in print. So pour yourself a Jack and Coke and get ready to get your rocks off.
Welcome to another edition of Getcha Rocks Off. Getcha Rocks Off. John, you do it. Get your rocks
Get your rocks off.
Ah, you see. I am Mick Wall. He is John Houghton. Coco the Metal Pug is absent again today, but he will be back.
AWOL.
He's kind of like Axl.
Yeah. You never know. You don't know till he comes in if he's coming in or not.
Because he's authentic.
Yeah.
That is an authentic metal pug.
Yeah.
You know, you might set a time and a place, and he might agree to it, and you may give him the big bucks to turn up.
He might have signed a contract.
But what does that mean to a guy like nothing? What does it mean to him?
Yeah, nothing.
Nothing. What does it mean to him?
Yeah, nothing. You got a problem with him? Contact his manager.
Yeah.
You got a problem with what I just done? Contact my manager.
Yeah. You got an issue?
Yeah.
Here's a tissue.
Yeah.
You can wipe my ass with it.
Yeah, good one.
Yeah, hang on. You got an issue? Here's a tissue. You can wipe Coco's ass with it. Yeah.
I'm quite pleased he's not here.
And that is a big, because you've got the curly tail, so you get a really good view of his ass. That's some fucking ass. You know what I mean? Anyway, so Coco's not with us.
Not with us today.
But, mentioning Axl, there's this whole thing about, Guns N' Roses, the most dangerous band in the world. Bullshit.
Not true.
Not true.
Not true at all.
Slash run a mile from a confrontation.
Yeah.
Axl, one of those guys who he talks it.
Guns or knives, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Talks it. He writes it down. He does do that. He does do that. He writes it down and then he sings it.
And he is the king of mic drop.
Yeah, but he doesn't mean it.
No, he was doing mic drop before the rappers were.
Yeah, but he was also wearing a kilt, wasn't he?
He did mic drop and a kilt.
Yeah, he did it all.
Well, which is fair enough. You got to give him that.
Yeah, I'll give him that.
But the real most dangerous band in the world, by a long way,
were, and I think we should have to say were at this point, because I don't know if they're sort of particularly done. Well, they all signed a contract to say that they're not a band anymore or something.
Who knows? We'll get to that.
Something like that.
But Mötley Crüe,
the Crüe,
the
Crüe, as I call them, the Crüe. Yeah,
the Crüe. I kind of feel like we could end there.
Yeah, that's it, and you would know.
You would know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, Mötley Crüe, and I think they were bad to the bone from the off, weren't they?
I think they were. We were talking just before we started. I asked a ridiculous question,
which was unusual for you.
Unusual for me. And the question was, have you got a copy of The Dirt here?
Yeah. I go to bed every night with The Dirt.
Reading The Dirt. I
read it. I caress it. I nuzzle it.
Yeah. And it's interesting in this day and age that The Dirt was really, the Crüe kind of re-broke themselves with The Dirt, didn't they? They had their initial period of success and then it all went completely wrong. Nicky got involved in drugs or whatever it was. And, Vince left.
Was involved in drugs.
I think he was. I think it was
famous.
Vince left.
It was more Kurt Cobain, wasn't it? The killer of fun.
There was that Vince left and they got John Corabi and, all of it. It just all went wrong. But then they decided, what we'll do is we'll give you the unvarnished version. We'll get a writer, in this case Neil Strauss, who, let's be honest, did a very clever thing with that book, structured it really well, did the interviews with each of the band. And even in the book, one of the things I love about The Dirt, even in the book is they're disagreeing with each other and they don't know what each other's said. And they don't,
Well, because that's real.
That's real, yeah. Although I do remember Doc McGee coming up with that great line about...
Doc McGee, who was their manager.
At the time. And he's in The Dirt, isn't he?
He is.
He is interviewed in The Dirt. And I said to him, mention The Dirt. He goes, oh, yeah, some of it's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably true of The Dirt, isn't it?
Some of it is true. Of all books.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
My Meatloaf book. Did I mention I did a book on Meatloaf 2 or 3 years ago? It's very good. You should.
Yeah, very good.
Add it to your reading list.
Very good.
Make a note for your diary.
Yeah.
You know, I must get the Meatloaf book.
Yeah.
Begins. Some of this happened. All of it is true.
That's a good line. Which
basically says some of this is true.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Because no one really knows. You know, it's like when you leave here today. You know, I think most people listening will go, well, Mick was...
Will go, oh, thank God, yeah. But
John kept interrupting.
You know, let's not go there again.
But you'll be remembering it in a different way, won't you?
I'm being followed by this interrupting thing.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I told you, didn't I, that, you know... No. It's following me now.
I know. It will haunt you to your grave.
Yeah.
The great interrupter.
The interrupter, yeah.
You've had the disruptor. Yeah. But you're the interrupter.
The interrupter.
Which is
I've completely forgotten what I was going to say.
Was it because I interrupted you?
It was, and it was about some of it. It's the old newspaper legend, isn't it? You know, when you've got the what is it? The truth and the story print the story. That's the kind of guiding principle behind the Dirt and Mötley Crüe and Kerrang and all of those things.
Apart from
Mick Wall, who just,
honest Mick Wall,
Brian May. Brian May of Queen
accurately
described him.
Brian May of the rock band Queen.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So Mötley Crüe.
The Crüe.
And the thing about Mötley is, and the Dirt kind of really illustrates this. I'm not talking about any particular stories in the Dirt, which are all amazing, but the fact that the Dirt becomes more popular probably than any of their records to a degree.
Yeah.
And before they'd made any good records, they were putting records out, but I'm talking really good records. Before they'd done any really good records, their story preceded them.
Yeah.
First time I saw them was at the Hammersmith Odeon in about 84. And all I had was those first two albums, neither one of which I thought was much cop.
No.
But I went to see them live, and that's when it made sense.
Right.
Because they were fantastic. And they had that thing that Guns would have later, which was they were like a movie come to life or a cartoon. Cartoon
characters.
Each one of them.
Yeah, it was that great thing about a band that Kiss always did really well, was like each one of them is their own sort of character. So you can identify with the one you think kind of most fits with your personality.
And Kiss, of course, were one of the sort of influences on Mötley Crüe in terms of that sort of presentation.
Yeah.
But where Kiss had this... contrived in the sense of created, designed. You will be the star child. I will be this guy.
He ran out after the star child.
I know
what are the others called?
Hang on.
When his copy used to come into Kerrang, just used to have a bracket saying, insert name here.
I used to
subs, insert name here.
Yeah. Insert band name
here.
Yeah. And let's get back to my flight over.
Yeah. Let's get back to me. Yeah.
Do you know a consistent review I get on Amazon of all my books? I don't know if you know. I've written a few books. Oh,
okay.
Did you know
Are they in the rock sphere?
Very much in the rock sphere. Yes. Yeah. And I remember. This has happened with quite a few books, like my Metallica book and a few others, Foo Fighters, and you get quite a lot of people going, "Yeah, I bought it, and it's just his opinion. Yeah, it doesn't tell us about the band. It's just like it's his opinion." Yeah. I'm thinking, isn't that what a fucking book is?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
What do you mean, sort of?
No, it is. What they want is they want an uncritical biography.
Well,
but you don't do those.
Do I? No. If you want an uncritical biography, Google.
Exactly.
Wikipedia.
Or buy anything that says on it, the official biography.
Yeah.
The official biography of.
Yeah.
And you'll get the what I call the varnished version.
Unless I've written it. And
have you written any official ones?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's done it all.
Oh, yeah. My very first book was an official book. It was the official biography of Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which, not only did Ozzy not read it, He didn't even take part in it.
Yeah.
Sharon did all. I kept turning up to interview Ozzy, and he was always incapacitated.
Yeah, otherwise disposed.
Otherwise engaged.
Yeah.
Probably working on writing some more songs.
He was writing songs. That's what he was doing, yeah.
Or working on his vocal technique.
Yeah, having lessons, all that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Sharon sat down and did all the interviews with him, which actually was way better.
That would be way better, yeah.
She can actually remember
what happened.
who I am, even, where we are. You know. No, there's that.
Oh,
the official Marillion book. That was
of course,
good.
yeah.
I did the official Don Arden book. That was good.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. So look, I take back my official.
I'm happy
comment.
to give you a resume right
Very
now.
good. But let's get back to
finishing with my official Dio book, which comes out in July.
That's going to be very good. I'm looking forward to that.
Very much so.
Yes, very much so.
Where were we?
Mötley Crüe and the Dirt.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is they presented as these four characters.
Oh, yeah,
basically.
unlike Kiss, who went, well, this is what we're going to do. Mötley Crüe obviously embellished and built on, but essentially that's
what they were.
That was really was really.
Tommy
them.
was the zany drummer.
Zany.
Yeah,
that's a good name. Zany. You mean like
zany
out the fuck of
drummer.
control?
Well, I mean, this is the thing about the Dirt. I'll keep going back to it, but it just. I mean, I think the Dirt came out in 2008. Am I roughly?
No, you're not even close. It's like 2001.
Oh, okay. Even before that. So we're talking 2 decades ago.
Yeah, imagine that.
But it felt like it was a step on from the halcyon period of the 80s of Mötley Crüe.
Oh no, they were dead.
But what I'm saying is that there was water under the bridge, not just in terms of their careers, but in terms of the way we have moved along as a society. Similarly, since The Dirt was published, we have stepped forward, I hope you would say forward once again. And 20 years later, it is impossible to think that The Dirt would be published now. It is genuinely impossible to think that. Because, it has that 80s morality about it, which celebrates, incredibly bad behaviour. I mean, I don't even think you could.
But John,
I wonder how you set about discussing some of those things now, in all seriousness.
But here's the thing, John. You're right when it comes to the book. But back in the 80s, and my first going to see Mötley Crüe coincided with me first becoming a regular contributor to Kerrang. In fact, I was very irregular to begin with, and. One of the things I loved about when I went to write for Kerrang was that very same freedom you're talking about, because by 83, 84, Thatcher's in power, Reagan's in power, we are at the beginning of Just Say No, we are at the beginning of major sponsorship coming in for rock and roll tours, we're at the beginning of CDs, MTV, the one album every 2 years. Everything was becoming corporate. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed when I first went to Kerrang was that, having spent years on Sounds magazine and similar things, where it was all it was right on. If you weren't punk, it wasn't that you weren't any good. You were just disgusting, disgraceful. Anybody that would like that music or enjoy that kind of lifestyle was clearly a complete idiot and should be shunned from society. The Jam, Paul Weller, was talking about how he didn't want to be big in America. Because that was what rockism was a thing. You couldn't be remotely rock. It was considered beyond the pale. It was really just music for tasteless morons you wouldn't even have in the house.
Yeah, that's why I liked it.
And that's why, because my career had begun as punk had begun, and I was interviewing endless bands that were trying to be Johnny Rotten or Joe Strummer.
Yeah.
And they were all against everything. And then one day I got sent to review UFO. And we ended up in a limo at a party where there were drugs and there were groupies and there were lots of people with money, and it was fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
So there was that back then. But you didn't have Me Too, you didn't have he, she, they, us, whatever it is. You didn't have woke. You didn't have people so easily offended, but they did take offence and they objected strongly. So, for instance, one of the reasons Kerrang was such a huge success was because the NME wouldn't even write about these groups.
Yeah.
Sounds was the last music weekly in the UK that would still cover these sorts of groups, and it was from Sounds that Kerrang came. But by the time I'd turn up in '83 or whatever it is, I'd never heard of Mötley Crüe. I'd never heard of any of these bands. But suddenly I'm going to see them and I'm thinking, I want a band that rides a Rolls Royce into the swimming pool. I want private jets. I want motorcycles. I'm not even... Music? Oh, fuck off. Anybody can listen to music. Yeah. Let's have a story. Let's have a lifestyle. Exactly. Let's kick ass.
Yeah, that is the thing about Mötley Crüe, isn't it? It's just like this kind of insane, out of control party coming towards you. I always said the worst thing about Mötley Crüe was the music. You know, the music almost, it was almost irrelevant. As long as it sounded vaguely like rock music, that was fine. They could hang everything else off of it.
I've always thought that, well, definitely for me, they didn't make a record that I would want to sit at home and play or just put on and get a buzz, till they made the Girls, Girls, Girls album. And there are a few tracks on that, but the two that I love are number one, Girls, Girls, Girls. Yeah. Love that song. And the video, of course, which has some girls in it.
Yes. Amazing. They thought long and hard and then filmed it in a strip club.
But if you read the lyrics to Girls, 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 they're really good too, because it talks about all these strip clubs they'd been to around the world. Crazy Horse in Paris, France. And then there's one in Texas called the Doll's House or something.
Yeah.
Oh, the Doll's House in Texas. It's a whole list of these places they'd been. And I just loved that. And then the one I really loved was Wild Side.
Yeah,
Wild Side.
Take a walk on the wild side.
And here was what was quite punk about them. Vince couldn't really sing no more than Johnny Rotten or Joe Strummer or Ozzy could really sing. But
Vince was perhaps worse. Have you ever heard Vince singing "Home Sweet Home"?
I now love that song.
I know, but if you see some of the live footage of him doing it,
see, these days that wouldn't matter.
Because you just have a tape. Yeah, but
tapes.
Poor old Vince was. Sometimes he was out there on his own.
This is for another episode one day when we're about to retire. But the amount of major rock stars, there's no touring at the moment, but have a proper singer in the wings these days. It is really common, and people don't realise just how common. But the tech is now such that if you don't, as a very famous rock guitarist said to me, Neil Schon, if you don't use the tech, then people just think you're not very good anymore. Because everybody uses the tech.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I don't know if they what do they do? Is the voice sort of auto-tuned as they're singing now or something? I guess
you've got banks of backing vocals, harmonies, keyboard, what they call washes, beds, all this stuff that on your laptop.
Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people get very purist about. Oh, I want to. I go to a show. I want to see a fucking show. You know, I don't care if that bit of bass I recorded a couple of weeks. So what? You know,
because that goes back to the kind of tradition of, particularly with rock bands from the late 60s onwards.
Yeah, that you had to be live, man.
Because you had to be good.
Yeah.
If you weren't live, it was because you couldn't do it live.
Couldn't do it live.
So you're not really...
Whereas even, I mean, we briefly mentioned Yes the other week. Even they admitted there were bits of Tales of Topographic Oceans they couldn't play, because it was so mad. It was just...
They did, but also I remember in the early to mid 70s, the old grey whistle test, which no one's ever heard of apart from us, and you're too young to even have watched it. But in the mid 70s, I remember Bob Harris, whispering Bob Harris, who lives up the road from me. Hi, Bob. I remember him introducing, because there weren't a ton of videos in those days, they actually had a film clip of Yes on stage, but because all the songs they did were like 20 minutes long, they could only do it. And he goes, we've got a vintage clip of Steve Howe. And it was just basically a bit of Steve Howe on acoustic guitar. And I swear to God, he was drooling. He was fucking drooling. His big old sad puppy eyes. He had no hair, but it was as if he had long ears. You know?
Yeah.
You get it was like vintage Steve Howe. Recorded earlier this year in Stockholm, you know, something like that, and it'd be
Yeah.
I think it goes back to that. So by the time you get to Mötley Crüe, they can't play.
Yeah,
That's right.
Which
They're
they
not
couldn't.
fucking
yes. Yeah, they couldn't. But they had the. But so you've got the four. So let's go through the four of them because it's worth doing because we're talking about they all had a character. So
I don't mean to interrupt, but one last thing on Home Sweet Home.
Oh, sorry. Yes, sorry.
At the end of an episode of Billions, which is have you ever seen Billions, John?
No, I don't subscribe.
Too busy watching Mrs. Brown's Boys.
Yeah.
Or what was that other one you like? Pinpoint.
Pointless.
Pointless, yeah. No, Billions.
Right.
Anybody listening to this now, check out Billions.
Okay, yeah.
But at the end, because in the first season, the main guy, he goes to a Metallica concert, and he's this billionaire, cool cat, and of course he's hanging out with Metallica. It's very funny. But they always have these little references. And at the end of one recent episode, it went into Home Sweet Home. And I thought at that point, I fucking love that song.
Yeah.
I hated it back then because it was shit, you know.
Yeah.
But now I love it because it's shit.
Yeah.
Home Sweet Home. Sorry.
So if we were to take each of the members of
Let's do that.
Let's do that. Let's go Tommy first, the drummer. Okay.
Again, that's an interesting first choice because if this was Led Zeppelin,
you wouldn't choose Bonzo.
you'd probably go, let's start with Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
But in Mötley Crüe, it really wasn't the singer and the guitarist. It really was the drummer and the bass player.
Yeah,
they were the fucking main
stars
animals,
of the show in many
show.
ways. And Tommy, because he's this very intriguing character. I mean, obviously, he looks like a rock. Him and Nicky had these kind of weird rock star genes, which were whatever the hell they did to themselves, whatever the hell they put inside themselves, it didn't seem to make any difference to how they looked. So when Nicky was a pretty serious junkie, a pretty serious junkie to the point where he's writing Kickstart My Heart and all that, he looked like God. He's still got amazing skin. You're thinking, you're not the kind of heroin addict you see knocking around London or something. But so Tommy's got this kind of generic rock star look. He did augment it
though, didn't he? Because at a certain point, when you said their jeans, I'm thinking of those leather chaps.
Oh, the leather chaps. Oh, yeah. Well,
with the bare arms.
He'd just wear those.
I mean, you're wearing
no
some
shirt.
right now.
Yeah,
I find that a bit disturbing, to be honest.
I find
I'm
it
so
arousing.
used to seeing your bare cheeks.
I find it arousing. But Tommy...
What, when Tommy wears them or when you wear them?
Both. Tommy would just wear them. No shirt. I mean, you never saw him in a shirt. Never wore a shirt,
What's
did
a
he?
shirt to a man like
especially
Tommy
if he
Lee?
lived in LA. Didn't need a shirt. What do you need a shirt for?
When you've got that physique.
Yeah, exactly. You've got the rock stuff. And he's got this kind of... sort of, although they're going around doing absolutely appalling things to almost everyone they meet.
Well, you see, that word appalling, that's from a 21st century...
From a 21st century perspective, let's say that. But he's got this kind of happy-go-lucky, everyone's dude, and he's got this ridiculous romantic nature where he falls in love with practically any woman he meets. It might be for an hour, it might be for 2 years, and then he's off marrying, in succession, a bevy of actresses, models, Pamela Anderson about 3 times or every time many times he married her, Heather Locklear, all of the kind of...
Well, he stole Heather Locklear from Richie Sambora.
Oh, did it? I thought it was the other way round.
Oh, no, you're right. Sorry, you're right. It was the other way
because
round.
Because he left Heather and went off with Pamela Anderson. And there's that great line where he goes...
No, I think Heather was already...
Oh, okay. Well,
fiending for Richie.
He goes. There's a great line where Tommy Lee goes, or allegedly ascribed to Tommy Lee in the Dirt, where he goes, "When you're on ecstasy," he goes, "Joan Rivers looks like Pamela Anderson. So imagine what Pamela Anderson looks like." And then he's making a sex video on a boat on his honeymoon with Pam,
as you do,
where they're both just. They seem to spend the entire 3 weeks or it was just nude on this boat.
Dude,
and,
if you were...
And as a result of that, Tommy's endowment becomes almost the fifth member of Mötley Crüe. You know, everyone's heard about this thing. Oh, Tommy Lee, and he becomes known as.
Are you talking about his cock?
I'm talking about T-Bone. Which he becomes known as, doesn't he? Everyone starts calling him T-Bone when the.
I thought you were talking about mortgages when you said down.
Yeah.
You're talking about Tommy.
Let's
call a cock a cock. You're talking about
Tommy's cock.
About Tommy's arse. You're talking about his cock.
And his cock then takes. I mean, his cock could have had its own TV show at that point. You know, it's like it's the fifth member of the band.
It's
you know,
certainly
literally, it's certainly a member. So that's Tommy. Then you go to Nicky. Now here's the complete opposite: dark, troubled, doesn't try to cover that up, nihilistic, dangerous. All of those things.
But also very tall and clearly a rock star like Tommy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's not employing those in a kind of, again, you made the punk comparison, and nihilism was a big part of punk. He's not doing it in that sense at all. He's more the sort of doomed youth, you know.
There's something gothic.
Almost gothic about, and it transpires later that he's had this tremendously troubled childhood. Of course he's fucked up after everything that's happened to him. You know, and he doesn't try and hide that, and he self-medicates with drugs, you know. But he's so you're talking about his sort of genetic celebrity. He's surviving all of this somehow and becoming more and more famous, more and more good-looking, you know, more and more desirable through all of this stuff.
There, John.
I find him.
You find Nicky attractive?
I do. I find him very attractive. I find him a genuinely interesting person because he's the one who comes up with the whole ideas for Crüe, the aesthetic for Crüe.
He's the Jimmy Page.
He's the Jimmy Page, but he's playing the bass. Yeah, he's playing the bass. He's, you know, so he's doing all. So he's sort of terrifically interesting at that point. And you think if Crüe's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong because of Nicky, and Nicky will kill himself or whatever. That isn't what happened because. In the other hot seat, you got fucking Vince Neil.
Right. Well, hang on. Before we go any further, I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a line between Nicky and Tommy.
Yeah.
And where we're going to go next, which is Vince and Mick, because again, you know, Mötley Crüe really kind of turned the tables here in rock orthodoxy. I was trying to think of other bass players that were the star of the show. Phil Lynott.
Yeah, Steve Harris.
Well, Steve Harris, but Steve also has very strong frontmen, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, for me, Nicky was easily the dominant presence on stage in the 80s, and then Nicky, and then Tommy.
Yeah.
Vince would be out front, but my eyes, you know, your eyes always go to the front man. I couldn't take my eyes off Nicky. He just had that amazing charisma. And Mick Mars was kind of like the anti-guitarist.
Yeah.
Now, Mick is, I think, a very good guitarist. But in those days in particular, the kind of, you know, you pretend you know, well, Mick's crap and Vince can't sing, but Nicky's a genius and Tommy's out of control. That's the glue of Mötley Crüe.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's not true because Mars is a very good guitarist. But he just did not have any charisma outside of that Uncle Fester.
Yeah, look, I mean, here's the thing. Yes, he was a good guitarist, but in LA at that time, you couldn't walk down the street without bumping into six guys who were good guitarists. You know, everyone could play. So it's interesting that Crüe always stuck with Mick when it wasn't the obvious thing to do. It's obvious from day one that he's a lot older than they are.
Yeah.
He's been knocking around the rock scene for quite some time, you know, and but even by the time they become famous the first time around, he ain't looking the best because he's got this scoliosis, and he's got this illness whereupon his back is seizing up.
Oh, right.
And that's what makes him sort of quite hunched. I think he now finds it quite difficult to play guitar because it's sort of got as far as the fact it's impairing his hands as well. But so he's, you know, and you're right, he wore a top hat, didn't he? He started wearing a top hat.
Yeah. I'm going to say yes because that's true. But
so
he wore all kinds of stuff.
I mean, he sort of looked like Alice Cooper, didn't he? He sort of had the very long, straight black hair, white makeup.
He looked like Alice Cooper's fat sister.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
older.
Yeah, older,
uglier.
Yeah. So he is. Yeah. And Mick, when they play gigs, he'd just stand there. He didn't do anything. He would just stand there, wouldn't he?
Which was the right thing to do, because Nicky's the star.
Yeah.
Nicky is not known as the greatest bass player, but he's the greatest rock star.
And Tommy's drum kit's turning upside down.
Well, by the time you get to Girls, 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 I think he's got the rotating drum kit, or did he have it before then?
I
think Girls, Girls,
yeah,
Girls.
probably Girls, 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 yeah. But I mean, just to say,
sorry.
You're right, those two are, the dividing line of the band does go in the opposite way to most groups. The singer and the guitarist are not necessarily the big stars here.
No, definitely not. Yeah. Although when I look back on them now, my feelings are entirely different to what they were at the time, because when they were doing Theatre of Pain, Shout at the Devil, all that stuff, I really did just think, well, this is kind of bubblegum metal for MTV.
Yeah.
The second album, they had to do a cover of Smoking in the Boys' Room because they didn't have a hit song on the record.
Yeah.
But by Girls, 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 they've rectified that. But they just had this quality that, Kiss had in the very early days, New York Dolls, but even Alice Cooper is a very close example. But I think also they did love that glam era. Me and Nicky are the same age. So I was 14 when I bought my first single by The Sweet.
Yeah.
Blockbuster or Hellraiser. And Nicky, you can so see that in the Mötley Crüe
very
DNA.
Much, yeah.
But that's Nicky brought that in. I don't think that was Vince. I don't think that was Mick.
Vince, no. I wouldn't have a clue what Vince brought in. I don't think he bought anything. I really don't. I don't think he bought anything other than being Vince Neil, which was great. I mean, we're kind of saying, Nicky was the real star, which he was, but Vince was a good frontman.
Fuck yeah.
He was like, he did the thing. It's a bit like boy bands where you get the sort of the quiet one, the blonde one, whatever. Well, Vince is the blonde bombshell in this, isn't he? All the others are dark. Vince is blonde.
So Mick is the quiet one.
Yeah.
Quiet as the grave.
Yeah.
Vince is the blonde himbo.
Yeah, very much so.
But very much kind of in the tradition of, say, an Ozzy or a David Lee Roth. You don't go and see this guy to hear Dio-esque beautiful vocals. No. You go because he's a character.
Yeah, he's a frontman.
If he turned up at your party, either you're going to call the police on yourself or you're going to have a party.
Well, look, here's the thing, is that, we were saying that it looked like it would all go wrong because of Nicky, but it all goes wrong, in context it goes wrong because of Vince when he causes the car crash, vehicular manslaughter, all of that stuff. Yeah, it's him that derails the band first.
He did. Well, let's recap. I mean, I think was it like January 85, something like that? Hanoi Rocks arrive in LA. Mike Monroe, he's broken his foot or his toe or something. So they're touring. I think it's like pretty much the first time Hanoi had done a tour of America, and they'd had to cancel some shows because he's broken his toe or something.
Right.
So they beach up in LA because the idea is that it will get better and they will continue. Yeah. So literally, Hanoi Rocks arrive in LA in 84, 85. Mötley Crüe have just come off the road. And they start hanging out.
Yeah, they hang out.
Wow.
And it's I think it's quite well described in The Dirt, I think, where they're at a sort of beachside mansion. I can't remember if it's Vince's mansion or it might be Mick's, I can't remember. Because there's everyone in The Dirt gets these amazing scenes where the thing that happens to Mick Mars is he walks into the sea and ends up looking like a whale that's washed up on the shore.
Why did he walk into the sea?
We don't know.
Was he holding back the waves?
Yeah, we don't know.
Again?
We don't know. But he ends up this black, people think a dolphin or something that's washed up on... all the others,
walrus seals.
Tommy's on a boat with Pamela Anderson at this point.
Mick Mars is unconscious, washed up
on a beach. Yeah. But Vince
is hanging out with
Razzle,
the drummer, the English drummer of Scandinavian-ish group Hanoi Rocks.
And the tragedy occurs. They
go to get
drunk.
More drinks.
They go to get more booze. Vince drives, causes this car accident which kills Razzle, which badly injures the two people that he crashed into, and I think he ends up.
And he ends up going to jail for like 30 days.
30 days. There was
During which I was told that the guards were so thrilled with him that they were bringing him beer, getting him laid.
Right.
He just had a great 30 days.
He had a great time.
Dude, I love your pad with the bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably took him about 15 days to realise he was there.
And then 15 days to get high and forget.
And then get home, yeah.
A lot of money changed hands.
Yeah, which, it is America, isn't it? That's, pretty much what happened. But you do feel that karmically it didn't play out,
That's an interesting point. I'd never really thought about that, but I guess...
Not till later. I mean, I really don't want to... it's a stupid idea. It's a stupid
Mötley Crüe
notion.
did have that aura of this is all going to end badly.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. But somehow they survived this quite serious event.
Well, they do the Girls, Girls, Girls album, and Vince actually, as part of his deal, has to have regular checks to see if he's taking drugs. And he spends the girls, obviously not all of it, but by the time the tour starts, Vince is supposedly the sober one. Right. Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
And the Girls, Girls, Girls tour was where they used to have the pen of girls backstage.
Yeah.
I can see. Johnny's cringing.
I can't. It's not cringing, but it's just like you remember that and you think, did that really happen?
Hell yeah!
But it did.
Yeah!
They had a pen full of practically naked girls.
Yeah.
On stage.
What's not to like?
Yeah.
No, okay, all right. I'm joking, but not really, because Mötley Crüe had it all up front.
Yeah.
Not only
it was unashamed. This is
girls,
what we are. Yeah.
We have essentially a jail cell pen full of girls who've all gone in there, by the way, voluntarily. And it becomes part of their legend.
Yeah.
But let me tell you, I as did you, we worked with a lot of all the major bands back then, and they might not have had a pen, but trust me, they were not gentlemen.
Yeah, absolutely true.
But Mötley Crüe kind of turned it into their thing. So why you couldn't go, that album is as good as the fourth Led Zeppelin album.
It was Vince's thing, wasn't it? It was very much. It was Vince's thing. Mick Mars didn't Mick Mars ended up at the point where he married one of the backing singers and then...
On the Dr. Feelgood album.
And then accidentally shot her. Yeah.
Hang on, this I don't know. Is that in the dirt? That's not in the dirt.
I'm sure it is.
What, he shot?
Yeah, accidentally.
Could happen.
Easily
if we hear a gunshot go off right now, it's because I've accidentally shot you. That could happen to anybody.
They were doing some sort of target thing in the desert.
They were what? They were doing a target...
Something like... Look,
Mick Mars in the desert. That's like saying Dracula in daylight.
Dr. Google is your friend here. It was something like that. Are
you sure you're not just having some kind of seizure?
Some kind of episode. Mick Mars shot his own girlfriend. I do know that.
Was she dressed as a nurse at the time?
I think she was dressed as a nun.
Are you sick?
I don't know.
You heard it here first. Yeah. I never knew about the nun incident, but you bringing that up means it's a fact.
A fact. Mick Mars does that. Nicky's this kind of dark, tortured soul. He's very much more into drugs than women at this point, as he stresses in the dirt. And I think his follow-up to The Dirt was the snappily titled The Heroin Diaries. You know what that one's going to be about,
Keeping a diary?
Yeah, keeping a diary. Yeah. Which obviously heroin addicts are very keen to do.
But this is why I loved them. I love them more now than I did then, because I was in my 20s, so I was still wrapped up in that idea of, well, this is bad behaviour. I'm all for that, but back it up.
Yeah,
like the Keith Moon drives a motorcycle down a. Yeah, have you heard? I mean, not all the Who albums, but have you heard "Won't Get"?
Well, so you mean in a weird way, the fact that these terrible things happen to them, it kind of makes them more authentic.
I think at the time I held it against them that. To me, there was nothing they were doing musically that had any substance. And then after Girls, 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 I was cutting them some slack in that regard. And then Dr. Feelgood, I went all in on that because I thought that was a really great rock album. But their career was nearly over by then. That was like the peak, and then after that, it starts to kind of go down.
Well, I mean, this is where, again, you don't want to see it all through the eyes of today, but the Japan tour and the famous snow on the roof incident that we'll talk about in a minute, they're supposed to come over to the UK to tour.
2 nights at Wembley Arena.
2 nights at Wembley Arena.
Big arena.
Before that, they're in Japan, and they are just out of control to the point where Doc's still their manager at this point.
Yeah,
isn't
he's there. He ends up actually in jail with Nicky.
Yeah, exactly. So, but they are, to all intents and purposes, unmanageable at this point. They're out of control. And though there's a lot of kind of, again, it was great, it was funny, this happened and that, there was a lot of kind of dark stuff going on at that
really
point.
Was.
The whole, the sort of the famous trip on the bullet train, which was turned into this kind of zany adventure. Crüe are on the bullet train, they just run onto the platform and escape the Japanese. In reality, someone's chucking around full bottles of whiskey and some poor bloke on the train gets his head stoved in.
Yeah, absolutely. Was it Nicky threw the bottle? Or
I can't. It was one. It was one of them.
Glad we cleared that up.
It wasn't all of the salarymen going to work.
It wasn't an accidental bottle of Jack that flew through the air into the man's skull.
So that that stuff is happening. And it's not all fun and games at this point. It's pretty fucking dark,
And also what we didn't know at the time, but we found out soon after, was just before they went to Japan, at the end of 87, they'd done the American tour, Guns N' Roses had been opening for them, and they come back to LA, and that's the night Nicky, Slash and Steven Adler all overdose through shooting up heroin. Nicky pretty much wakes up in the ambulance, and then later, hence the song "Kickstart My Heart," because he'd been technically dead for a minute or two. That all happens, and then they go to Japan.
Then they go to Japan. So they're kind of on the downward spiral very much as they even hit Japan. And Japan is, I know we've spoken before, but it's a very weird place to tour. It's a very, if you had just been on tour in America and you suddenly went to Japan, there's a big culture shock there. It's a very different country. Everyone behaves very differently.
Everyone behaves.
Yeah, everyone behaves. Yeah, the gigs are on at very different times of the day. 6 in the evening. So you're done by 8. Yeah. What are Mötley Crüe going to do?
Probably warm milk and cookies in bed.
Yeah, that ain't going to happen. They're already frazzled and mad and out of control. And then this happens to them. It's crazy. So Doc realises. Is that the famous line in The Dirt where Doc goes, I thought they were going home in body bags. Right. That was his quote, wasn't it?
Right. I can't remember, but
it was something like that. And I think specifically he was talking about Nicky, but anything could have happened to any of them, basically. So he decides, the only thing I can do is pull the rest of the tour because these guys just need to go, wherever it is you put rock stars who have just hit
rehab. That's where they went. Rehab.
Yeah, they have hit the buffers hard here, And
first Vince is killing people, and now Nicky's killing himself.
Yeah. Tommy is. I mean, the other thing is we have to kind of get across the level of their fame at this point. They've done that thing that not all rock bands do. Guns N' Roses would subsequently do it, where they've kind of leapt out of just being a rock band, and even in America, they're tabloid fodder. The fact that Tommy is married to, successively Heather Locklear and then Pamela Anderson gives him a whole new level of fame. He's in, Us magazine. He's in People magazine. He's in the National Enquirer pretty much every week, because it didn't take a lot to get a good sort of paparazzi snap of Tommy in his chaps and nothing else. Hanging out with Pamela, who was practically wearing a bikini wherever she went.
Wearing his chaps and Pamela Anderson.
Exactly. So they're on another level of fame at this point. And Doc, probably as an afterthought, thinks, Christ, well, we've got to, the kids, the fans, we've got to say something. So who's the only member of the band who can even speak at this point?
Mick
Mars. Let's get him on the phone to his old mate and namesake, Mick Wall.
That's right. Another one of my famous interviews.
To let the kids know what's going on.
I remember doing that. I very rarely did anything in the Kerrang office, But
that's right. It was in the Kerrang office.
And this was we were having our own apocalypse now on Kerrang, because Kerrang went weekly in November '87, and as part of gearing up for that, about 3/4 of the staff all left to go and work at Metal Hammer.
Yeah.
And so it was all hands. I think I was about the only well-known one that stayed, and so I take over as news editor from Malcolm Dome, who's gone. And I'm looking for a bright young mind that I can train up.
Yeah, a young boy.
A young boy, fresh from the
streets.
Straight from the ghetto.
Yeah, yeah.
I took this young boy from the ghetto and I trained him up in the ways of metal. His name, and that boy
became... Well, if I told you he now lives equidistantly between Brian May and Roger Taylor, you would know.
And yeah. And his name is John Houghton.
Exactly.
That's another clue.
That's another clue, yeah.
So between.
So I'm sitting there at the feet of the master
as I conduct a news interview. That's why I got it. With Mick
As
Mars.
I remember, it was. I mean, obviously, it was winter at the time, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was
like
deep midwinter. So it's been dark since about 2:00 in the afternoon. So I remember it was dark.
And I used to bring about 6 cans of beer to work with every day in those days. I haven't started drinking yet. This is just office beer.
Yeah.
You know? And I get to talk to Mick at about probably 5 or 6 at night because of the time difference. And we've already heard what's been going on we haven't heard about the OD yet, but we've heard about...
We know
the bullet train.
We know it's being cancelled because of they can't do the tour, basically.
And so I'm talking, and he starts telling me they've had to cancel the shows because of the snow on the roof. There were concerns. Some PR's obviously taken Mick into a room. Now, Mick, I know you've never done an interview before because no one wants to talk to you. They just want Nicky or Vince or Tommy. Yeah. When we offer you, they go, nah, we'll leave it till next time. So you have to get across the fact that the only reason these shows are postponed is because of the concerns over snow
the atmospheric conditions. That roof could come in at Wembley Stadium. Imagine snow on the roof at Wembley.
Now,
can you imagine what's going to happen?
All he had to do was say, like Jimmy Page's, his excuse that he's used every time, I hurt my finger. You know,
we'll be back as soon as I can,
But no, they've come up with this fucking stupid story, and it's just a short straw. They've got me, and not some metal Mötley Crüe fan. Yeah. Oh, okay, Mick, snow on the roof. Yeah. I've gone, snow on the roof? What the fuck? What about what happened in Japan? He hangs up on me.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I've gone too far. Maybe mentioning the bullet train was too far.
Yeah.
But I start thinking, is anybody playing at Wembley tonight? So I do it, because I think he's gone. So I start doing a bit of checking around, and there, there's a band there tonight. There's a band there.
To be honest, we're like about 4 miles away from Wembley. You just look out the window and see it's not snowing.
Yeah, I think it had been snowing the week before or something, you know. Yeah. And I'm thinking, well, that's got... Next thing the phone goes, he's back.
Wow.
And he's like, I don't know what happened. I think we got cut off. I think, no, I think you fucking hung up. And I said, don't snow. Are you fucking kidding? And he just backtracked. I was like, well, I'm not sure about the snow. You know, somebody mentioned it. I don't know, you know. And so by this point, I'm like... Because in those days, you'd talk to them all the time. So it wasn't like, I'll make the most of this. It was, get a fucker off the phone, you know. And then I wrote the story, and we were all sniggering.
Ha, ha, ha.
It was like we all wrote that. That story wrote itself.
Yeah.
And so now it's part of the folklore.
Yeah.
But we're running short of time, so let's move this along. For me, the apotheosis, the kind of the peak.
Oh, that's a good word.
The peak from which
Mr. Dictionary. No, we now join Mick Wall in Dictionary Corner.
Welcome to Thesaurus Weekly.
What's another word for
thesaurus?
Can't even say it. Go on, carry on.
Dr. Feelgood. I still love that track. Dun, 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 dun,
Dr. Feelgood.
I wanted them to use that as the intro music to this podcast, but apparently it would have cost mucho dinero.
That's right, yeah. But the thing is, he does that Aussie thing of just singing along to the riff, doesn't he? He's the one that goes out to feel good. They're going to make you feel all right.
Hey, Bob, can you tweet that?
Just
Yeah. Well, they were all straight when they were making that. They were all still in rehab.
They moaned like hell because they were sent to, was it Canada or somewhere with Bruce Fairbairn?
Yeah.
And, they were a great bit of management on Doc's behalf probably, or whoever was managing at that point. Just put them somewhere where they can't do any damage,
Well, I think it was Aerosmith had just done the same thing, I think a few months before. They'd all been in rehab, come out straight, and this was kind of the logic. But the first thing they do as the album is released is they do the Moscow Music Peace Festival. Yeah. And this does become the apocalypse osis.
Yeah.
And Doc was telling me quite recently, he was saying that by the time we got to Moscow, he said, I just was so sick of them.
Yeah.
He said, they just weren't fun anymore. He said, yeah, they were straight. He said, but I actually preferred them when they were completely out of control because at least it was fun.
Yeah.
But now they're in Moscow, their first show after rehab. This anti-drug, anti-substance abuse festival. And, of course, all the other bands are getting out of control and fucked up, and Mötley can't. Although Doug Thaler, who was the co-manager, told me also quite recently, he said even on the plane over to Moscow, Tommy was already cheating.
Yeah.
Sneaking, that was the word. Yeah. Tommy was already sneaking.
Yeah. Yeah, because spoiler alert, people, they don't stay straight for that long. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Just when you thought there was a happy
Just when you
ending.
thought this is it, they obviously gave up and that was it. Yeah. Amazing.
No, they didn't. So we're coming to the end of this, but I feel
like
we've
hardly started.
I feel there's a second episode, don't you?
Yeah, well, I've not even mentioned my close personal friendship with Nikki Sixx.
John, I was just funny you should say that. You must have read the research I did before the show.
Yeah.
Please.
There was the time he came looking for me with a baseball bat.
Yeah. Go on.
Well, no, he came to review the singles at Crank.
Last episode it was Nelson.
Now it was Nicky. Idiot!
And like Nelson, did Nicky bring a guitar and sing to you?
No, Nicky didn't bring a guitar. Nicky bought a baseball bat.
And why was that, John?
Well, because Nicky was peeved, I think was the word.
Were you starting shit and spreading lies and ripping off the kids?
Yeah, that's what I was doing. The background to this was the whole Matthew Tripp story. Matthew Tripp was a guy from Florida who claimed to have been Nikki Sixx's doppelganger. We won't go through that whole story now, but that was the story that I wrote for Kerrang. And Nikki, for whatever reason, didn't feel it was true. And,
just to recap, in case, because we have mentioned this before, but it was a while ago. And we're not ones to repeat.
We wouldn't. We would never do that. And we would never tell tales out of school either.
God knows. But Matthew Tripp presented himself as... Well, you know this better than anybody.
Okay, well,
you're the one that broke the story to the world.
The early
you're the
days...
only one that ever believed him, let's be honest.
Well, the early... I'll come to what I believed in a minute, but... his story was that in the early days of Mötley Crüe, so this is just before Theatre of Pain comes out, so they've made one album. They're still a support act, but it's kind of obvious they're going to do pretty well. And they're already being managed by Doc at this point. And Nikki Sixx, the real Nikki Sixx, Frank Ferrano, incurs some sort of injury. It was a car crash or something. Something happens. And in order to keep the band on the road, because they're just about to break big, they're on tours and all of that, Doc thinks, right, I can't take them off the road. I'm just going to get some guy who was Matthew Tripp, who said he was recruited by Mick Mars, undercover agent. Right. And Matthew did kind of look weirdly a bit like Nikki Sixx, especially once he had them. They all wore the makeup at that time. So he put the makeup on. And this is 1981. You didn't see them on MTV all the time. The only time you sort of saw what they really looked like was in a magazine. So if they come to your town, they've got the makeup on, they play a show and they go... It's sort of feasible that someone could be.
Is it, John?
Is it, John? I didn't care if it was true or not. It was a brilliant story. Who's going to not write that story? By that point, Matthew's got a detective. He's sending us pictures of that Ross had done his classic Mötley Crüe shower shot. You know?
Yeah.
And it's like Nicky and Tommy in the shower, but Nicky's foot is different here, and his belly button is different, and he's comparing belly buttons. And here's my belly button, and here's Frank Ferrano's. So it's like brilliant. I mean, it's manna from heaven, you know. So we run this story. Nicky goes off the deep end, obviously, you know, doesn't like it, but Tripp kind of gets this. Yeah, it comes to ruin his life eventually, and he's dead now, sadly. But it's just one of those things that could only have happened in that time and place. And I think if anyone asks whether I believed it, what I would say is I believe that Matthew believed it. And that's the kind of best you can say about it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair summation.
But to get back to Nicky at that point, so Nicky's
read this world exclusive.
No, he's already had a go at me at the time of Dr. Feelgood when I interviewed. He's already had a go at me at that point and threatened to punch me.
What did he say?
That was at Ray Palmer's studio. He goes, "You wrote some shitty things about us." He said "us," and I thought, well, what you mean is me, don't you? But I mean, I honestly thought he might punch me at that point. He didn't. And I thought, oh, that's it. We've faced up to each other. We've seen each other. He's not got, you know, because I thought there's probably a chance he'll just go straight for me, you know. He didn't. He did the interview.
You're lucky it wasn't Vince.
He was very sad. Vince would have gone straight for me. Vince, I think, was like oblivious that this even happened, you know, luckily.
Hey, so Nicky wasn't in the band?
But
Who knew?
But this is at the point where, I think the singles thing was maybe a year or so later, or maybe even slightly later than that. So things have calmed down a bit. The baseball bat was semi-ironic. What he did was...
Semi-ironic?
Yeah, what he did was, one of the singles under review was by Fish, who'd gone solo by that point. And whoever was doing this, they're in the corner of the room doing the reviews. You know, they used to... Whoever was doing it, I can't remember who it was, obviously said to Nicky, "Oh, John Horton likes Fish. He's Fish's mate," you know. So Nicky gets the baseball bat and he smashed up the Fish single. But brilliantly, he then wrote it when I came back from lunch, because I'd gone to lunch or something, you know, lunch back in the day. When I came back after lunch...
Hang on. You said, "Nicky, hold the baseball bat. I'm off to...
I'm just nipping out. I will be back.
I've got to leave by 4.
Yeah, I'm off by 4 today. But so
pointless.
But they were there, you know, they were there, and I went out and then came back and they'd just gone to do whatever it was they were doing next.
Drugs?
Yeah. But on my desk was the smashed up Fish single, and on it he'd written in pencil, "To John, you're next, Nicky Six." And I had it for years, and I lost it, which is a real shame. I had it for a real long time. Yeah.
Nicky was not just the boss of Mötley Crüe; he was the boss of LA for a while. I mean, in my 80s LA days, you know, if Nicky showed up somewhere or you went somewhere and Nicky was there, it was an event.
Yeah.
It was an event.
Yeah.
In fairness, he wasn't this guy that you would see everywhere. You'd see Axl everywhere, but you wouldn't see Nicky. But then he would turn up somewhere and it was look out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I remember being somewhere once and Nicky and Slash were there. And Slash was very much the kind of junior partner, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
In fact, I remember Nicky kind of giving Slash a lecture about carrying around the bottle of JD all the time because Nicky had just cleaned up.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And then one of Slash's friends, I remember saying, that person saying to Nicky, "Yeah, think back, Nicky, to you when you were at that stage." You know, I don't know why I did that accent. "Think back, Nicky." And he was like, whatever. But I just think he shouldn't be drinking so much, you know. Maybe that was Matthew Tripp. Because it doesn't sound like Nicky.
That was when he was, Matthew was... Tonight, in the role of Nicky Six, will be Matthew Tripp.
All right, we're going to end on this.
Oh, OK.
I think, I'm sure you will agree...
Well, you're not sure I'll agree, because you don't know what I'm going to agree to.
I'm sure I won't get to the end of this story because you will fucking interrupt, okay? Their career, like the careers of Poison and Rat and all these other people, really took a hammering come Nirvana and grunge. But it coincided
but who's around now?
But no, absolutely. But you know, Vince left, was fired, whatever. And they bring Karabi in. And that contributes to their downfall. And I think it was a perfect shitstorm in the sense that whether you were Joe Elliott of Def Leppard or Axl Rose or John Bon Jovi or Nikki Sixx or whoever, you had to respond to this new reality, as it were, of the grunge thing. And I think with Corabi, I think they'd also been painfully aware of their kind of lack of musical credibility, for want of a better phrase. And I think they saw that as an opportunity to go, okay, we are still Mötley Crüe. I mean, they called the album with Corabi, didn't they?
Mötley Crüe, yeah.
But we are a Mötley Crüe that makes meaningful music, and actually we're not that different to Soundgarden or whoever. And of course, that was the complete end of them. But do you remember just before? I remember one of the last in my LA days. One of the last times I was there in that era. They put out a single. They had a best of thing called Decade of Decadence.
Yeah, they did.
And they put out a single called Primal Scream.
Right.
And I remember watching, it was like 1 a.m, and it was the only time MTV would show it. And they showed the video. And I remember just thinking, wow. I mean, I just was like, wow. With Vince, they've taken it to the next level. And they've kind of adjusted to this new kind of grunge reality.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't the glammy, there wasn't the chicks. It was quite an abstract video. And there were lots of kind of belt buckles and leather and really obtuse angles. And the track itself is really... I loved that track. It was so different. And I thought, wow, who knew? Mötley Crüe are actually... And then Vince is gone... and the whole shithouse goes up in flames.
Yeah.
Until the dirt. I was the editor at Classic Rock in 2001 when that came out. And I had so many people in that publishing company asking me if I could get them a copy.
Yeah.
People that had never even heard of Mötley Crüe. Certainly they had no records. Certainly had no interest in records. Everyone had heard about that book, and it was an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah, it was.
But here's how we're going to end. Well, not towards the end. 20 years later, nearly 20 years later, we get the movie.
Yes.
Did you see the movie?
I did see the movie.
See, I didn't see the movie. I just couldn't... I just thought it's going to be shit.
Yeah.
What was it like, though?
Terrible.
Was it really bad?
It wasn't great. Yeah, I think I said on a previous podcast, we don't want to keep repeating ourselves, but I do remember saying this. The only good bit is the guy who plays Ozzy, and he's exactly like Ozzy, exactly like him, and he snorts up the ants, on that tour when they're on tour with Ozzy Osbourne. The rest of it, man, no.
And what about the guy that played Doc McGee? What was he like?
Oh, you know who it is? It's David Costabile, who plays, if you're a Breaking Bad fan, he plays the doomed Gail Bettaker, the chemist employed by Gus Fring, who gets murdered by Jesse Pinkman.
He is one of the major stars of Billions.
Right, okay, well, there you go.
Great actor.
Yeah, it's him.
He plays Doc.
He plays Doc. He's absolutely the sort of 597th person I would have picked to play Doc. And he's, to be fair, I mean, he's just a bit too mild-mannered,
Yeah, that wasn't Doc.
Yeah.
I mean, Doc told me he used to call Mötley Crüe savages with cash.
Yeah.
And
that's as close as anything.
Doc is a great phrase maker.
Yeah.
He said to me, you've got to kind of do the accent. Sorry, Doc, if you ever hear this, because this obviously isn't your accent, but this is my feeble attempt. But Doc was like, with Mötley Crüe, you got to remember, it was either chicken salad or chicken shit.
Yeah. He's right. I mean, he is. Yeah. He's right.
But will we ever see their like again, John?
No, very much.
You say that because of the woke era?
No, I don't think it's even that. I just think it was of its time, and that music is so different and so atomized these days. I think that kind of celebrity is impossible now.
What about that kind of decadence?
Yeah,
because
I don't know. I mean, everything comes back, doesn't it?
Because
you could go back to the Roman Empire and say, well, that would never happen again. But it kind of sort of has in a different way. It'll happen again, but in a different way.
But I don't
maybe
think
after this pandemic. Maybe someone was saying to me the other day, after this pandemic, people are just going to go nuts. I thought, are they? I don't know.
Well, I am.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I already am.
I'm a mask off kind of guy.
Yeah.
I see it like Kiss.
Oh, don't go here.
You know when they took the makeup off.
Yeah.
And then they put it back on.
Yeah.
I'm about putting the makeup back on.
Yeah.
So when this is all over, John, you and me,
we're out there.
because I was thinking about Nicky and Tommy.
Bit like
We're
us.
kind of like, because when they used to call them the toxic. No, that was Aerosmith, wasn't it? The Terror Twins.
Who knows what?
Who fucking knows?
Yeah.
But we're kind of, you and me, we're kind of like Nicky and Tommy of the pod.
We're the crazy cats.
We're the crazy crew cats
that's
of the
us.
podcast world.
Yeah.
I mean, you even look like Nicky.
Now, yeah.
Well, in your chaps that you're wearing right now, you look more like Tommy.
Yeah. Bottom half Tommy, top half Nicky. That's the way I kind of.
Yeah.
It's the sort of way I go about it. Yeah.
Well, you're also very tall. You're very thin.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, well, which one would I be? And
you're Vince all day long.
I'm not just Vince. I am a fat Vince Neil, and that is something to be still, I think.
Vince is a very aspirational character.
Yeah, can you jump in when I say fat? Can you come in like, no.
No, I can honestly say Vince is way fatter than you, dude.
Dude, Vince is way fatter than anybody at this point. Have you seen that man?
I have seen.
I love him for it, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He just does not care.
Does not give a shit.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that is Mötley Crüe, my friends. We will return.
We shall return.
If you liked this episode, be sure to leave us a review, share it with a friend, or plain old subscribe wherever you happen to listen to it. For full episode show notes, visit nofilter.media /Getcha Rocks Off.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.